Well, there's still a lot of things that are unclear about what the St. Louis Cardinals offseason is going to look like. But on this episode, dealing with the Cards, we're going to talk through what are some moves they could make to be proactive of building the major league roster. Could they make some bigger swings still? Could they make some moves around the edges that really impact the team for 2026 and beyond, or even the 2025 club? We'll talk about all this and more in this episode of Dealing the Cards. Hey, welcome back to Dealing the Cards, or if this is your first time tuning in, we go live twice a week for St. Louis Cardinals podcast. We also have some other kinds of fun content on here as well. Like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton. Have guests coming on throughout the whole offseason. As the offseason really starts to get underway here in a few weeks, as the postseason ends, we'll have a lot more clarity of what the Cardinals are thinking, which will make these conversations a little less speculative and a little more like informed, I guess. But kind of the nexus of this conversation where we kind of want to take things today is that even before the whole retool rebuild stuff came out, there was a lot of reporting, especially from Derek Gould, who when he puts stuff out there, it's backed by stuff, right? He's not just speculating, that the Cardinals were interested in acquiring what he called a tentpole bat. And I have a hard time believing that he reported that kind of stuff and then it just totally is out the window now. So I think within the range of outcomes for the Cardinals this offseason is that they could potentially add more to the roster, even as they're reshuffling the decks, right? Like think of the Chicago Cubs at this past trade deadline. They were selling, but they also added an Isaac Paredes for the future. There are a couple teams who did moves like that where they're taking away from the club while also buying at the same time. I actually think that's kind of the new Major League Baseball, where it's less defined sellers and buyers. That's still a thing, but there's a lot more of a middle ground of people who are maybe building toward the future. So they're going to sell assets that don't fit that timeline, but they're going to look to acquire assets that do. And that's not always prospects. Sometimes that is Major League ready talent. So today we did want to talk through, and also even if they do rebuild or retool, something that's very common is you still add pieces knowing that you could flip it at the deadline or fill they're not trying to tank. So like if they want to be somewhat competitive and pour into the younger guys, maybe there's some interesting moves they can make in the free agent market, trade market. So today we've identified different needs that the team has, quote unquote, and then we're going to talk through, should they add, could they add, and if they did, what should they do? So let's start with the rotation, and then we'll kind of get to the bigger bats and all that stuff later. But looking just kind of at the Cardinals' current starting pitching options, you have kind of Sonny Gray, Eric Fedde, and Miles Mikolas as the three veterans that are at least pretty set in stone, could be gone, could be shopped, or could be on the roster next year. Then you have this mix of young arms who are kind of next man up: Michael McGreevy, Quinn Matthews, Sember Bursa, Gordon Graceffo. Tin Ken's probably a little bit further into the season. And then you have a Matthew Liberatore and Zach Thompson still. So that's 10 arms I've already named. Plus, you could pick up the option on Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn. Plus, you still have Steven Matz. Plus, you could make Ryan Helsley a starter. Sandy, when I read off all those names, do you think the Cardinals should prioritize adding another starting pitcher this offseason, or is that not necessarily something you think they need to prioritize?
I think it just depends what they do with these other guys. It's just really hard to tell right now at this stage still. If the Cardinals move on from all of Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, Miles Mikolas somehow, Sonny Gray, Eric Fedde, there'll be a lot of holes. And I think it would make a lot of sense for them to go add somebody else from the outside. Because even if you're talking about, I think they have more depth coming into the year than they have in the past. I think the stable of pitching at AAA actually made some good strides with Andre Palante and Michael McGreevy coming up and pitching well. I think there's a chance that a guy like Gordon Graceffo could win a role, although I wouldn't bank on it right now based on some previous failings with guys like Zach Thompson. But if you made all those moves, the Cardinals would probably need to go out and do something. And they could also move on from Steven Matz. They could potentially move on from up to 6 starters this offseason.
Yeah.
But if they keep 2 to 3 of those guys, absolutely not. If Mikolas sticks around, kind of a bag of whatever at that point. If Matt sticks around because they don't find a buyer, and if they pick up the option on either Lynn or Gibson, then no, because all of a sudden there's only 2 open spots and those go to Palante and McGreevy. So it's just really hard to tell. We'll have a lot more clarity on that in a few weeks, I think.
Yeah. What before we jump to Andrew, are you open to the idea of them picking up Kyle Gibson's option, Lance Lynn's option? Do you think there's value in keeping either of those guys? Would you rather see them kind of shuffle, or even with Miles Mikolas and Steven Matz, do you think it's imperative that they move 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those guys, or does that where are you at with each of them?
So
or I guess, sorry, you could really throw Fedde and Gray in there. That's why it's so complicated.
Absolutely.
But
it's a really tough issue. So with those 2 options, I think if the Cardinals determine that one of them is below market value, you take it, right?
True.
So if you look at it and you're like, well, Lynn is probably going to get like 12 million next year. I'm not saying that's true, but if the Cardinals looked at it and said Lynn is probably a $12 million pitcher next year, pick it up and trade him. If it's below market value, pick it up and either trade him this offseason or trade him at the deadline. That's fine with me. The same thing goes for Gibson. I'm not sure either of them are significantly below market value because those options, while fairly team friendly, are still quite a bit for aging pitchers. They're 1-year deals, so it's not like you're getting the type of control you would with Fetty. I think it's imperative you move Fetty. He's got a lot of value right now. Move him. You could get a lot for Fetty, and that'd be really awesome considering all you did was give up impending free agent Tommy Edman. So it'd be a very impressive move for the Cardinals. As for Gray, probably best to get the contract off the books at this point. As a Gray truther, I'm devastated, but it's time to face the music and, understand what's going on here. As for the other guys, I'd love to see them move on from some of these people just in terms of do I want to watch these pitchers next year? No, I don't want to watch Steven Matz and Miles Michaelis next year. I would much, much rather watch Gordon Graceffo figure it out than watch Steven Matz get hurt again. It's just, and I think Steven Matz is about I think he's not a crazy overpriced asset, and I think the Cardinals can move him easily. So it's a really complicated issue. I'd rather them move on rather than keep just in general, because I want young players to get opportunities. And I also think if you want to go with the Brewers random win scenario, the Cardinals' best chance to win next year is probably to say, let's run a youth movement and get lucky. And I think that's way more likely to happen if you cut bait with a guy like Michaelis or Matz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to move on from Lynn and Gibson this offseason. There's guys that you can get out there that have a lot higher upside for probably similar, maybe a little bit more.
Walker Buehler.
Yeah, like Walker Buehler. And I think another guy that you could definitely target is someone like Jordan Montgomery. And it's going to take a trade package, but you could probably give up a mid-tier prospect, and they'll probably eat half the deal.
Oh, yeah, to get money eaten. I was going to say Jordan Montgomery is a salary dump for the Diamondbacks at this point.
Yeah, but you would have to get them to eat a significant portion of that contract. And the Diamondbacks owner called them out and was like, "This is the worst signing I've ever seen." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's great." The last time I remember a player getting called out like that, he got traded right away. I think it could definitely, and he got traded for absolutely nothing.
And not right away, a season later or off season.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with that situation. But he's someone I would definitely look to acquire. And Mo loves bringing back his former Cardinals players, but Jordan Montgomery is actually a guy who could be good for you next year. But guys like the Royals got Seth Lugo, who could have been terrible, and Michael Wacha, who could have been terrible. Not Lance Lynn, who is kind of going to be okay and isn't going to be good. But Seth Lugo ended up being an all-star. Michael Wacha has been great. Guys with more upside, but Montgomery can also be terrible, like we saw this year.
Yeah, I'm definitely out on Montgomery at the value, especially because 2025 is not the year you're trying to win. So I guess you could hope he's good and then you flip him again. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Teams do that all the time, right? The Pirates did that with Aroldis, or not? Was it the Royals did that with Aroldis Chapman?
But Montgomery's 20 plus million, so that's a high risk.
Yeah, but if you would need Arizona to eat a significant.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. I think so. If I'm looking through the guys they have right now, I think Fetty is the guy you easily is the most sense, makes most sense to trade even above Sonny Gray. Because Sonny Gray is a different kind of style of pitcher. He also has the no trade clause. He's the front of the rotation guy. Fetty is someone that, to your point, or Sandy, is being paid below market value. And so if you picked up a Gibson or Lynn option, I'm not really sure how much you get in the offseason, because a team could be like, well, I could just go sign a guy similar for $12 million. So why would I do it? But Fetty, it's like, well, I can't sign a guy for $7.5 million that can do that. So I think you can trade him, or wait until the season, but I would trade him in the offseason if you can.
Yeah,
if you picked up
more value that way.
If you picked up Gibson or Lynn's options, are probably more so Gibson. I think you have the argument that next at the trade deadline you could flip him when there's teams that are needing pitching. You can't just go out and sign it. You have to trade for it, which I would be content with them doing that if they have enough open rotation spots. I think right now, I personally think they need to have enough spots for McGreevy to be McGreevy not being blocked. Also, I didn't name Andre Palante earlier. I just realized that. So he's definitely in the rotation. I think you need to have spots for Andre Palante, Michael McGreevy, and then the opportunity, but not you don't have to rely on Quinn Matthews to make it. They should not block Quinn Matthews, but they also shouldn't like force him into the rotation. So I'd say like 2 spots and the third one where you don't mind if the guy's overtaken. And then those other 2 spots, I think you should have veterans, because I don't think there's a point in throwing Gordon Graceffo out there, Sam Robersa, Matthew Liberatore, Zach Thompson.
Could be. He could win a job.
I think if he earns it, but I'm not like going into spring with him penciled in.
Yeah.
Plus, like last year, the Cardinals had a lot of luck with not getting injuries to rotation. I mean, Sonny Gray missed a few starts. Lance Lynn missed some. Gibson was mostly healthy. I mean, Steven Matz technically missed out, but you had Andre Palante fill in. The Miles Michaelis made his starts. So you need depth behind them. And so I think you're going to get starts for a Gordon Graceffo, a Sem Bursa, guys like that if you need to, but they're not guys I'm opening up my rotation with unless they somehow blew me away in spring training. So I think depending on, to your point, if they trade Fetty, if they don't pick up the Gibson or Lynn options, I say the Glenn option, the 2 guys together, whatever they do with Sonny Gray, I think they should have 2.5 spots penciled in for their young arms, and then 2 to 3 spots for veteran arms right now. And so again, if they get rid of some of those guys, I think you have an option to go bring in some guys. I want to throw out some names that are free agents, and if you guys have some names, go ahead and do it as well. And in the chat, we'd love to hear ideas, and we can kind of banter. One of the ones I'm already seeing multiple times, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw him as the top one, is Walker Buehler. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. It's like a buy low, see if you can get something really good out of him option. I got to be honest, I don't know what kind of contract he's going to get this offseason. Is he going to find a way to get a multi-year deal? Because if so, that's a little bit scarier, especially if the AAV ends up being a little higher. But if he's a 1-year deal kind of guy, that makes a lot of sense as a guy you could flip at the deadline, or maybe it works out really well and you extend him. Or if it's a kind of a lower AAV multi-year deal that he's looking for, or like a 1+1 kind of deal, I'm open to that. Like I mean, I know he's not hurt like Shane Bieber or like Brandon Woodruff was this past year, but if he does that kind of style deal, and he could pick up the option if he wants to remain, I'm open to something like that with a guy like that, because I can't remember which one of you said it earlier, but that's a higher ceiling than a Gibson or Lynn. And so sure, he could be injured, not work out. It's like, whatever. Or he could, and it's like, okay, now we have a really good trade piece, or even another building block for the future. What, Andrew, you're a Dodger guy, Walker Buehler, do you think he's a potential fit for someone if they had, or the Cardinals, if they had a rotation spot open?
He's looked better lately. He had a good start against San Diego in the series where they clinched the division. I think it was in the game that they clinched the division. He was the winning pitcher, and he looked really good in that start. I think he gave up 1 run in 5 innings. His playoff start was really bad if you look at his line. But that was also the inning where Freddie Freeman threw the ball away and Miguel Rojas tried to turn 2 on that. Like, it was just that inning that just spiraled out of control. And I don't really blame him for that, because when you give the Padres like 6 extra outs, they're going to score more runs, and that's fine. I'm not overly worried about that. He's pitching tonight if you guys want to tune in and see how he's doing. But he has looked better than he did earlier in the season, where I was saying I would rather have Miles Michaelis in the Dodgers rotation than Walker Buehler, because that's just how bad he was. Okay. Like, it was just unplayable, but you give him more time to rehab, I think it could work. One thing that I will note, though, if we're going to talk about the Dodgers, is that they are looking at options for next year to make their rotation healthier. So a trade candidate that nobody's thrown out there for the Cardinals to get, that I know Josh will really like, is, who is their most injury-prone pitcher?
Hey, they want to use some money, I'll take Tyler Glasnow in a heartbeat.
What if you had a Glasnow and Nolan Arenado type package? There's both like a lot of money involved in there, both not great contracts. Like, I've thought about it for a little bit, and it seems like a pretty decent idea. Like, they could go out there, maybe throw like, I don't know, but I think the Dodgers might be looking to move some of those arms that are a little bit more injury prone this offseason. And that's something to look out for.
That's an interesting thought. Glasnow is kind of a salary dump type, but yeah, I don't know if they'll give up on him that quickly.
I also just don't think Glasnow's a bad asset yet. I think Glasnow was fine, and then he got hurt. He's not a bad asset right now.
Yeah.
I think Nolan Arenado's a bad asset right now.
Yeah.
it's really hard to say Nolan Arenado is a building block on a really good team because
Have you seen the Dodgers defense this postseason? It's not been good.
Yeah, but Nolan Arenado is already age is already a factor with Arenado.
Yeah.
Age is not a factor yet with Glasnow. Glasnow is also being paid way less. Arenado immediately becomes one of the highest paid players.
I don't think he is.
Yeah, no, Glasnow is
no, in terms of total money though, it's way less, right?
No, it's not. Glasnow is extended for longer, I think.
Yeah, he is $32.5 million the next 3 years, and then a club option of 30 for 2028, which Notto's like 28 million in cash this year,
and the Rockies
and then 15.
Quite a bit of it.
Yeah. Well, that's 30, 28.
Oh, I was thinking total figures. I'm sorry. Because
I'm going to get Josh talking about Glasnow
total, and Glasnow is 115 total.
I mean, F4 wise, Nolan Arenado is only a little bit behind Glasnow this year.
But I don't think Glasnow is a bad asset yet. I don't think the Dodgers need to salary dump him. I think he's a viable front of the rotation starter going forward. When you said most injury prone pitcher, I was like, is he going to go with Shohei Ohtani? Please don't say Shohei Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani's thrown way more innings.
He actually kind of is an injury prone player for them. He didn't play.
I didn't see Ohtani pitch at all.
Half his ability is out.
Only 481 innings pitched in his entire
Speaking of Ohtani, moving on. Don't the Cardinals need a guy that can not hit with bases empty and can hit with
wrist? Okay, let's move on. A couple other options I want to throw out there real quick, just so we don't spend a million years on each of these. I'll throw out some names. You guys can throw out some too. Another couple buy lows. John Means, who kind of came back at the end for Baltimore and has shown the ability to be like a high end 3, low end 2. Might be an interesting guy who would take a 1-2 year deal to kind of rebuild his market value, because I doubt he gets a long-term deal. He made like 4 starts, like a mid-2s ERA this year. Mike Soroka, again, is a guy who's really good with the Braves. Got to pitch the White Sox this year. Still only 26 years old and is going to be a free agent. I think, if you trust Bloom and you trust maybe Dusty Blake and whatever they're doing with pitching development to maybe shift him a little bit, like maybe he's a guy worth taking a flyer on. And then an Andrew Heaney, who's a guy who's up and down, that has a ton of strikeout stuff, but injury prone. Any names that stick out to you guys as potential buy low targets, or if you want to go high, I don't see them doing it, but if you've got interesting names, free agent wise, what do you think?
Soroka, I really, really like that. Soroka, when he's healthy, is really good. It's just been really hard for him to be healthy lately. But the Cardinals, there's no reason why they can't take one of these flyers, like you said.
Yeah.
Also, the Soroka deal would probably look a lot like the Keenan Middleton deal this year. And Keenan Middleton's not the only reason the Cardinals missed the playoffs. He didn't pitch at all, and it was kind of a bummer to just throw $9 million at nothing. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I think the Cardinals can learn it's not that big a deal. And if you get a guy like Soroka who's healthy and pitches really well, that'd be awesome. Cardinals should know Soroka well. Remember 2019 when he was the guy in Atlanta? There was a point where it felt like Soroka was going to be the ace and Fried was going to be the second pitcher.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Mike
crazy.
Fultonevich, and then the Cardinals ended his career.
We ended his career and we ended McCann's career.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to throw out some trade ideas for you guys, and then let me know if you've got other names too. So, again, all these are varying levels of price, and who knows if they're even available. But we always have to talk about the Mariners guys because it just makes a ton of sense. If the Mariners want to get some bats, I don't know, all of them are different price points, but you would think Brian Wu maybe would be the most tradable of them. I think they would rather keep Bryce Miller the 2, and then there's no way they're trading Gilbert or Kirby. I don't see Luis Castillo being a fit for the Cardinals. But then also Emerson Hancock is an interesting name.
Walker?
Yeah, no.
Emerson Hancock is awful. Don't touch Emerson Hancock.
I don't know what their asking price is, but if they're,
I wouldn't even look at him. Kareem didn't.
Just throwing names out there, guys. Just throw some names.
I heard that they would only do it for Jordan Walker.
Okay, yeah,
I remember that
from somebody on fans. I forgot who it was.
Yeah, that's brutal. I think Garrett Crochet is still an interesting option. He's got multiple years of control, and so it's you're not. You're paying the premium a little bit for 2025, but you're also he's a long-term option. So
Hancock is terrible. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the numbers.
Okay,
a couple of percentile ERA.
A couple of Chaim Bloom guys. Jeffrey Springs, who he had in Boston, traded to the Rays. It will be a free agent after next year. Has been really good. Has some injury issues. Shane McClanahan, who
please.
Okay, again, I don't know if the Rays are going to do this, but
so excited.
Who knows? Maybe they would sell. I think they'd want him on the mound for a little bit longer before they did that. But Chaim was really high in Shane McClanahan. They drafted him the second round after they drafted Matthew Liberatore. That's more of hey, long term, maybe the Cardinals could try to go after a guy like that. But the Rays are always flipping their guys for more prospects and more talent. And then maybe Sandy Alcantara, Jesus Luzardo. I mean, who knows what the Marlins want to
Sandy
do?
Alcantara would be the most exciting
So
thing
those are
ever
just some
for
like
me.
trade options that are interesting to me. If you threw out some of the young bats, like if they're trying to, like if Ivan Herrera's on the table and guys like that, like I think like that's not nearly enough for Shane McClanahan, but it could be a piece of a larger package. Jesus Luzardo, Ivan Herrera, I think that's an interesting close value already. You're probably overpaying maybe. Sandy Alcantara, that's definitely an overpay in my opinion.
Wait, say that one more time. The
That
overpay for Sandy Alcantara.
Well, he's coming off Tommy John.
I know,
so
but I'm so excited. I love him.
So anyways, do names like that stick out to you guys, or is there other names that stick out to you guys on the trade market? And would it be worth it? Would it be worth it to you to move some young, like a Nolan Gorman, Ivan Herrera, probably a package of guys for any of these arms to go get one of them?
I still really like Reed Detmers. And
Milo.
He was just so bad this year. But he has so much promise, and I don't know if the Angels want to trade him. They're trying to contend next year, believe it or not. I don't know how that's going to go for them. But they're probably not going to trade him at that point, but whatever. I like Shane McClanahan. I like a lot of Rays arms. Imagine if the Cardinals fleeced the Rays by trading Gordon Graceffo for the next Randy Rosarino. Wouldn't that be cool if Chaim Bloom just did that for the Rays? That'd be fun.
I do think the chat's thrown out. I think Ivan Herrera, Wilson Contreras in a Seattle deal makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So
I think if you're
isn't Cal Raleigh one of their better offensive?
Well, they need so much offense that I think DH, first base, outfield,
it's really bad for them right now. They have the worst offense outside of the White Sox in the league. So.
And also, you need to
play better than the Cardinals with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, and Victor Robles is their tentpole bat. So.
Oh no.
And Dylan Moore. No, I think you said something interesting that I think I would push back on, Josh. You said that they'd be more likely to keep Miller rather than Wu. I don't think that's true. I think Wu has a much, much higher ceiling than Miller.
Sure.
Miller's numbers this year look better, but if you check out the Savant page, for example, Miller is probably the luckiest, if not top 3 luckiest pitchers in baseball. Sure. Expected numbers are just very pedestrian, whereas Wu, his expected numbers are near the top of the league. I can't see them trading either of those arms, though. And Emerson Hancock, like I said, is booty. But I think a deal with the Marlins or the Rays could make a lot of sense. I think the Marlins are in a really interesting position. They've had a ton of turnover in their front office, and they had these assets that matured, and then they didn't trade them when it was time. And now they're right where the Cardinals are, where it's the end of another era. And like the Cardinals, it's an era that left a lot to be desired in terms of, what didn't work. And I think they may just be trying to recoup some value. And I could see the Cardinals making a deal like that. It'd be really exciting if they got one of those high value arms. Yeah. And there's still plenty of guys on there. I don't know. I was banging the Nate Pearson drum last winter. Might've been the only person saying his name, but he was really good with the Cubs when they gave him a shot, and it took nothing to acquire him. The Cardinals need to go out and they need to go after more former top prospect, high pedigree arms that are available. I don't know why they don't take some of these flyers on guys. It's not like they didn't have innings to allocate to someone like that. They absolutely have the innings next year to allocate to a Jesus Luzardo or to, he's probably going to be costly, but the injury history is really concerning now with him. He's only put it together once. Shane McClanahan, I would give my right arm for Shane McClanahan to be a Cardinal. I think
he has his left arm.
Yeah. I think he has the best stuff potentially of anybody in baseball.
Yeah, he's so
pure
good.
stuff. Oh, it's amazing.
That's
it's
why
Jacob DeGrom though, where it's healthy.
I think there's he's only had one major. It's not like he's had multiple injuries now. It's just the one. But I think it's hard for me to believe they'll trade him this offseason because he's coming off an injury. But next offseason or the deadline. But I just thought I was sprinkling glass now the offseason before of hey, he's coming off an injury. You'd be interested in those next offseason. So I feel like that's McClanahan. It's next offseason we can see it. Max Meyer, who knows?
Yeah, Max Meyer, Trevor Rogers, even. Oh no, he's a Baltimore Oriole.
No, he got traded, but they sent him down to AAA.
Braxton Garrett.
He's not good. Braxton Garrett.
Not Landon.
There's a good changeup.
Different guy.
Yeah. All right, we'll continue to have these conversations about pitching the offseason. A comment that's coming through, and I feel like people are wondering is why the heck are we talking offseason targets when they're going to trade everybody? We don't know they're going to trade everybody. That's still not been confirmed. There's still a lot of variance, and again, they're still reporting that they're looking at things. We're talking about a scenario where they are moving off some guys, but they also are bringing on some guys. It would be a payroll decrease. Most of these guys we've talked about are pre-arb or arbitration guys. So you're not paying Shane McClanahan a crap ton of money right now. You're not paying Bryce Miller a ton of money right now. These buy low free agents, you're not paying a ton of money. So we're not talking about Corbin Burns or Max Fried. We're talking about high upside plays. But yeah, before we keep going, I want to thank a couple of our sponsors of the podcast. And the first sponsor we want to thank is actually a new sponsor of the podcast. Smith Agri-Service is a family-owned independent realtor providing farmers in Missouri, Illinois, and Iowa with competitive wholesale pricing on Corteva, BASF generic brand crop protection products, and Burvent corn and soybean seed. You can scan the QR code that's been on our screen for most of the podcast. So if you're listening, you want to scan later, you could do that. You can screenshot now and you can text the number there or smithag@irtc.net for more information if you're interested in any of their wholesale products. They're already a great partner of the podcast. We're excited to partner with them. So thanks, Smith Agri-Service Incorporated. And then we also obviously want to keep thinking 3 and 4 sports cards and collectibles. You can check them out at 9640 Olive Boulevard and Olivet, open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 on Saturdays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. And we actually have a live pack opening from Andrew today. So as he's opening it, we know many of you already check out 3 and 4 sports cards and go in person. So let them know if you've come by and that you've heard about them from us. But Andrew's going to rip a new kind of pack that came out.
Yeah, so they just dropped the Topps update series today. Got all sorts of rookies and players that changed teams. I think Tyler Glasnow is in this set, so maybe we'll get Tyler Glasnow for Josh. I actually got 2 of these packs courtesy of 3 and 4. So let's start with this one. Oh, and you guys are going to see the cards before I do, so I don't actually know.
Oh, Etrio. Wait, how is he in there?
Oh, that's cool.
What?
I don't know why he's in this, but that's pretty cool.
Roberto Clemente. What
I guess
is
these
this?
are just legend cards then. I don't know.
Oh, wow. That's kind of wild.
Come on.
That is not a legend.
I don't know who that is.
That is not a legend.
Brett Harris. Maybe the Cardinals will trade him.
I remember Brett Harris. He might still play.
48-year-old pitchability lefty.
Was I don't know. That's interesting.
Okay.
These are pretty cool.
Yeah.
You got one of these ads on the back. You got Yamamoto. I don't know who the other guy is. Never heard of him. And now
so salty.
One more.
Okay.
Oh,
Let us know in the comments too if you like these like mini pack openings. If we should do more of those.
Blaze Alexander.
Blaze. Okay. Throwback to Blaze. Or not throwback. He still plays, but in my head he's Kodai.
Thanks for walking everybody on the other day. Oh,
let's go. Come on.
That's cool. Pull
That's
the thread of the
awesome.
pod. Oh, and this is
Dave
gold.
Winfield. Nice. That's sweet.
This one's gold. It is numbered out of 50.
Friend of the pod,
cool.
VS2.
There you go.
Let's go. And that Dave Winfield card's pretty sweet. So
Nice.
Hey Sandy, how'd your exam go? Kareem wants to know.
It was pretty good. It was hard, man. I might have gotten cooked today, but we'll see. We'll see in probably a week or two.
Hey, well, speaking of cooking, 3 and 4 sports cards always has great deals and stuff going on. So make sure to check them out. Thanks, 3 and 4. Another cooking. I mean, remember we kind of talked about the beginning of the pod, but you had Derek Gould talk a little bit about the idea of a tentpole bat, middle of the order bat for the Cardinals. Feels less likely now for sure. And even some of the names that he was checking in on, like he mentioned, like I'm calling, like he wants to figure out, like, is a Vlad Guerrero fit that? Like that doesn't seem like it makes sense getting a guy like that in his last year of arbitration. It's about to be a free agent 2026. Like I don't see that happening. But I think it's worth talking about. Like, could they do a tentpole bat? So internally, I've got nothing besides Wilson Contreras that fits the bill there. So
we're talking about Nolan Arenado's one of the best hitters in baseball.
Well, I mean, maybe Jordan Walker develops into that, but like none of these guys you could be like 2025, he's our guy. It's like
Nolan Gorman and his 46% strikeout rate.
Hey, beautiful. Free agent. I don't think there's a single realistic target that's a big name bat because it's Juan Soto and it's Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso.
No, Twitter told me you could get Juan Soto for Dylan Carlson. So just trade for Dylan Carlson from the Rays and then trade him for Juan Soto.
Out of my cold, dead hands.
I wonder how that reliever is doing that the Cardinals traded for Dylan Carlson, but that's fine.
Armstrong, he's a tentpole bat.
He's a tentpole bat. Okay, so trade market though.
If he was a tentpole bat, he would be my favorite player. By the way.
Okay, how about before we move on for free agents? Mark Graham, Anthony Santander.
I'm a Santander truther.
Give the case.
Well, I mean, look, I think Santander is a really good bat, and I think that he'll be a middle of the market bat. I think he'll be much
What's
cheaper
middle of the
than
market?
options. I think he's much cheaper than the other options. You're not
Yeah.
paying. Soto's a $400 million player potentially. Soto's a future Hall of Famer, and he's so young, and I'm already comfortable saying it. He's one of the best. He's one of the most disciplined, best hitters we've ever seen. Soto is completely unattainable for the Cardinals. Alex Bregman is in a weird spot. He plays third base. You already have Arenado who plays third base. Alex Bregman is not a DH. Alex Bregman's also had some down years offensively since his crescendo in the late 2010s. I don't want him.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso makes no sense for the Cardinals either. You already have a bunch of players that are limited defensively and are blocked. And I know Santander is too, but Pete Alonso is way more expensive than Santander. I could see you getting Santander for like 120, maybe less even.
Yeah, I just don't see
Alonso
them.
would also get
Imagine like a 90 for
walking
$4.
to first base. But
Yeah, do we really
like
see
Teoscar
them
Hernandez.
handing out? They've only the only $100 million deal they've ever handed out is Matt Holliday. Do we think this is the offseason they hand out another $100 million
Yeah, no,
deal?
it's not. But
So-
I'm not saying they will sign Santander. I'm just saying I wouldn't hate the move. I think you could, and I think he's a really good hitter, and I think he would probably be the best hitter in this lineup.
I think it would make sense. The only scenario where in which also they're not spending money, which is also part of this, but like or that kind of money. But it's like 2 off seasons ago where if they had traded for Sean Murphy, then they were open to the idea of Dansby Swanson because they could have moved money a different way. It's like if they traded for some pitching or something else using Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, like some of these other names, and they cleared some of the clutter, then maybe you bring in a Santander. But I think right now you're just too many DH options, too many corner outfield options. I mean, Santander could play first base, but like I don't think that's going to happen either. I don't see it, but I like him. I'm a little afraid he's a guy that you're buying high on, where it's like the contract's going to be a little out there.
If the Cardinals had gotten Sean Murphy and Dansby Swanson, I think this would be a 10-year rebuild. Maybe
not quite a 10-year, but
I like Teoscar Hernandez a lot. His only down year, like you're not really buying high on him. It's like the best year of his career, but his only down year is when he went to Seattle, where everyone has down years. So I'm not really too worried about that. And yeah, what did he hit? Like 30, 35 homers this year. Outfield defense, I think, is okay. Obviously, he didn't DH at all with the Dodgers, but I prefer him over Santander, I think. A little bit younger as well, but I don't know if they're going to meet that asking price. They probably won't.
Yeah. Okay, let's think trade market. So the popular name is a Brent Rooker, so we can talk about him. A couple other names I threw on there. So I mentioned the Vlad one earlier just because he is a guy that fits that idea, even though I think it's extremely unlikely. A Luis Robert seems like an interesting buy low, and he also fits another category later where if he plays what he should be, he's that middle of the order bat, but it's coming off a down year, and maybe the White Sox would be interested in a package of young bats that are like Ivan Herrera plus other things. Again, I want to keep Ivan Herrera, but I'm just saying the Cardinals are really shopping him. Or like they would take Nolan Gorman and other pieces for Robert. That could be interesting. But those are really the only bats I could think of in the trade market that would make any sense, with Rooker being the one that probably makes the most sense. Even though I just said they have too many DH corner outfield types, I think the bat plays enough, and he could be a first baseman too, potentially. Are you guys in on the idea, or would you be interested in pooling some of those young bats and prospects to get a Brent Rooker? He is in his early 30s, but he's pretty arb. Or are you kind of like, I'm cool on that?
I think there's reasons to like that kind of move. It's just like the Cardinals have had a ton of good prospects come up, but when's the last time they developed a real tentpole bat? Probably Albert Pujols.
You can maybe add a Matt Carpenter kind of was that for a little bit, but that's a stretch big time.
Yeah. Matt Carpenter had his moments. He had stretches.
What is a 10-pole bat? Like,
a top 15 hitter in baseball by WRC plus.
Some of the guys Derek Gold was throwing out were like Luis Rengifo and like Taylor Ward.
Did he throw those names out there?
And that's not a temple bat.
And I was like, that doesn't seem like.
I thought other people threw those names out there.
A temple bat, in my opinion, is a guy who is hitting in the middle of a good lineup.
Yeah, which when Gould asked that, or was asked that in a recent chat, he put the names that he was trying to figure out info on, so he wasn't connecting them. He was just saying these are the types of names of Brent Rooker and Vlad Guerrero. He didn't say Luis Rengifo. I think those other people who tried to pinpoint that.
Rengifo is just objectively not a temple.
I mean, he's a good hitter, but he's not like I don't know,
more than a 120 WRC plus guy.
Like, I think if you're a top 30 hitter in baseball, you can probably quit and be like, because technically 30 lineups, like you're technically like, I mean, I know it's not like that, but like
I would
you're
say
top 30-ish hitter. I think
I
that's
feel like
like
a 10-pole bat is like there's like a tier below like a superstar bat, like.
Yeah,
I think when I hear the word tentpole,
Like I don't think Aaron Judge is a 10-pole
piece.
bat. He's
Well,
like
no,
better
Aaron.
than that.
Yeah, Aaron Judge is better than that. But like, I think of tentpole, and it's like it's a foundational piece of your lineup.
what
Like, I
if
think
like
Wilson Contreras is a tentpole bat when he's healthy.
what if that like
Burleson
what if
could be a
what
10-pole
what
bat.
I think he's always he could be a good hitter, but like
Who?
a lineup you build your lineup around Alec Burleson. I don't see that as a ceiling, but like what if the Athletics are like, hey, we get 5 years of Alec Burleson plus a couple other pieces, like, and not saying couple other pieces like Michael McGreevy used to be that guy throughout there, like Sem Bursa. I'm talking about like significant pieces. Like you could take some of the guys who already filled that kind of position but have a lower ceiling, like Burleson, which I like Burleson. I don't think you have to trade him, but use Burleson and Herrera to get Brent Rooker or something like that. Like,
what if you could?
I don't know.
What if you could put together like a big package with Oakland and acquire JJ Bleday and Brent Rooker?
Bleday.
Oh,
another left-handed hitting outfielder.
Someone who's good though. 120 WRC plus this year.
Okay, well, none of us think they're gonna do 10-pole bat though, right? We're probably like, I think it's in the range of outcomes, but it's like way in the like.
Well, I think there are reasons to make that trade. Like the Cardinals, I think need to take a step back and realize like they've had so many guys come up and it's like this is the guy. Like Dylan Carlson is supposed to be a 10-pole bat and he's just not. Jordan Walker is supposed to be a 10-pole bat and he's not. Tyler O'Neill looked like a 10-pole bat and then wasn't. Like they've had, you can't miss this many times in a row because it's getting ridiculous at this point for the Cardinals. And like even other hyped up, like Delvin Perez was a super hyped up prospect at one point. Like there have been so many guys who the Cardinals have looked at and they've been like, that's the future of this offense. And none of them have panned out. It's like 10 in a row or more that haven't panned out. And on the pitching side, it's every bit as bad. So I think, there's every reason to say, you know what, like this guy may have way less value. Cardinals prospects as a whole have depreciated in value over time. And it's so predictable at this point. And I know this sounds really negative, but like I would make that trade. I would trade for a 10-pole bat with control because it can be someone else's system that developed the guy and he can just come succeed for you. All of our offensive production is imported in the last like 10 years outside of a few guys. But like it really is safe to say almost every year, even like the weird Cardinals teams of 2016 through 2018, it was like Brandon Moss, Mark Reynolds, like it's still imported production.
For sure. I think at the end of the day, it's like, I think they'll explore it. I think they'll look at some of these options because there's a lot of things on the table, but I just don't think there's one that stands out. But if it does, I don't think they'll be totally afraid to pull the trigger. But I think to Kareem's point, if 2025 is a gap year, a reset year, you don't necessarily need to push your chips in for that bat now unless you see them being that 2026 and beyond. And plus, it's like, what if you go for Rooker and he's the DH right field type and you don't give those like and you get rid of Yvonne or you take away time for Jordan Walker, Lars Newbar, but then they develop and it's like, well, that was dumb. We could have added that bat in another spot. We just added in a spot we already have guys. So I think 2025 to me is unlike years where you're trying to compete. I'd rather see all the guys, figure out what you see, and then like, oh, we need a first baseman or oh, we need a center fielder, than like try and figure out that right now when you really don't know what you have.
And I can deal with that. I can wait. But I think if the opportunity presents itself and it's like, this would be a really good deal just in terms of value. Yeah. Like I would throw time window out the window and I would make the move that maximizes value.
Totally agree. This is probably a quicker one for us, but center fielder that hits right-handed is probably something they could look at. They wanted to. Don't really have.
I don't see it happening.
They don't really have an internal option. If you look at the free agent market, maybe a Harrison Bader reunion, Kevin Pillar, Kike Hernandez, I'm Bloom there. You never know. Or the trade market. I think there's probably a lot of options that could fit that, but none like I didn't want to throw a bunch of small names on here, but like a Luis Robert if they wanted to buy low. Do you think in this reset year it means a lot? Like you need to go get a right-handed platoon option, or is that kind of? I think you'd rather just let Siani and Scott.
Right, not Siani. Yeah. Siani's a fourth outfielder.
Dude, Siani got snubbed. Can we talk about that?
Well,
why is Juan Soto a gold?
Well, because he's in the American League and plays a different position, so it doesn't even matter.
No, I know, but it's just the most absurd thing ever. He's like a -16 fielding.
Juan Soto's been nominated like 3 years in a row.
He's like -4 DRS, or not DRS, OAA. where Siani's 99th percentile and played way less innings than everybody else.
This is a super low bake take. What if they moved Gold Gloves to be kind of like all NBA, where it's like a little bit positionless? And so we stopped because I feel like sometimes left field, right field, like some of these positions, like, yeah, there's some pretty good guys, but it's like, oh my gosh, there were so many good defensive third basemen this year. I know it throws off the history, but I don't know. I'm kind of interested in the idea of like a all first team where it can have a couple third basemen. And I don't know. I know it's best to reward the best guy at the position, but
Mets fans were telling me all summer how good Lindor was defensively. Where is he on the Gold Glove?
He should have been on there.
Where is he?
Too. He played well this year.
Well, Mason Wynn's
he played great defense this year.
Mason Wynn's the best defensive shortstop by like a lot of metrics. Yeah.
I hope he wins.
He's going to.
All right, let's round out the conversation. We had two more areas.
Where's Ellie De La Cruz?
All right. We know he was going to be there. A couple areas of potential need. First base. It's more of a question mark than a need, I think, in my opinion. And free agents, I mean, there are some guys, but do we see them going out and signing a free agent? I mean, maybe a lower tier named first baseman like a Paul Goldschmidt. Just kidding. I just want to call him lower tier name guy. That's a position where I'm like, you kind of look at Alec Burleson, Luke and Baker, but then also I think you should consider Ivan Herrera or Wilson Contreras there. Are you guys open to the idea of either of those guys playing some first base?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
cobble it together. Give guys at bats. Sajazi can play first too. There are plenty of guys. Yeah, there are plenty of guys on this team that can take those at bats, and there's absolutely no reason to take at bats from them to give to a lower tier option like a Paul Goldschmidt. Like, just don't do that.
I don't know if they need to fully transition either of them there, but Wilson Contreras' bat would be excellent at first base because he's excellent as a hitter. He's not just the best hitting catcher in all of baseball, but he's also a top 8 right-handed hitter in all baseball in the last like 600 plate appearances. So I want that bat lineup all the time. And then Yvonne, I could see something there, but I think what they'll likely do is the Burleson Baker DH or not DH, first base platoon. The other one could play some DH too, but I think if they're
I was just saying, I just don't think I'll care about the defense. Like,
yeah.
If Cardinals aren't in contention, give those at bats to someone else. It's essentially a DH position at that point.
Yeah, I just think if they're planning on keeping Contreras and Herrera long term, and if they're not going to trust Carrera behind the plate, you got to get him some first base time, or Contreras first base time. But and then the last thing is a bullpen. I don't know if any of us have names, or did you guys have free agents or trades for first base at all? You'd want to throw out?
Not really.
Let Luke and Baker play.
I like Luke and Baker.
Hey, I know it's super small sample size, but he was like a 12 WRC plus against right-handed hitting or pitching, but then like a 182 against lefties. Yeah. So platoon, sure. Mm-hmm. Not ready to say he's a full-time guy there.
He and Burleson make one good hitter put together.
Yeah.
Just use Paul Goldschmidt and bring him back.
Oh, we're good.
Where's he going to go?
Pools.
Arizona.
They have Christian Walker.
He's a free agent.
Is he?
Yeah.
But then that means he goes in the Hall of Fame as a Diamondback, which is kind of gross.
Yeah.
Hey, he won his only MVP with the Cardinals.
Yeah, but he was only here for like 6-7 years.
That's a long
which is only a little bit less than he would be with Arizona long term.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Goldie in a Brewers uniform would be disgusting.
The Brewers would turn him into an MVP candidate.
No, Rhys Hoskins didn't work out, and I thought the Hoskins deal was really good when they signed it. So,
yeah.
What about Rhys Hoskins for the Cardinals?
No,
I'm good.
I don't like his
last thing.
His I don't know.
That's bullpen. Ryan Helsley's probably should be traded. Just capitalize the value. There was an interesting article in Viva Alberto's about like that recent trade history with relievers like that aren't actually that great. I liked the piece, but I thought like my main takeaway was there's not really good comp for Ryan Helsley. That a lot of the trades he showed out there, I was like, a lot of these guys don't really like compare to Ryan Helsley's situation, in my opinion. There's too many differences, and there were a lot of like lower tier guys. So I still believe you can get a haul for Ryan Helsley. But I mean, just round out the conversation, the Cardinals should do what they did last offseason, right? Go sign a couple of guys to cheap contracts or like a Keenan Middleton. Go trade for some guys aren't going to like some of your ancillary pieces. I mean, maybe you don't need to make the Andrew Kittredge trade because it's a win now trade, but like go after the Riley O'Briens, the Ryan Fernandezes, the Nick Robertsons. And if you get a bunch of them, a couple of them will probably pan out and be really great. And then you didn't really risk a lot to get the other guys. But again, I think bullpen's a little less important because they've got young arms that can fill some spots in there already, and you're not contending. So
Is that the new blueprint to build a bullpen for the Cardinals?
1,000%.
Let Chaim Bloom do it. Yeah.
But also, like, just like most good bullpens are mostly built of pre-arb guys, guys you developed, or like low hanging fruit that you got from other places. That's like, hey, most of them didn't work out, but then this one guy popped off for me, and he's great now. So, like, Luke Weaver for the New York Yankees right now, right?
People who are mad about that are not very smart, but you know what? That's fine.
Why did they trade for Paul Goldschmidt? What?
7 years ago, and Weaver's been on like 5 teams.
They should have seen it coming.
He's been cut. He's not even a starter anymore.
Wait, you guys are telling me you didn't see in 2024 Luke Weaver would be a dominant closer?
Nope.
No.
I had no idea he'd be better than Clay Holmes, and I'm stupid for thinking that.
This is why we get told we are condescending sometimes. But
What world are we living in?
we're just messing around. We're just joking.
We're in the dark.
All right, maybe to wrap this up, do you guys, out of all those categories, are there any areas you feel like they potentially will make an external move to upgrade the team? Jeff Jones recently was asked, like, hey, do you think there's new guys in the 26-man roster? And he's like, I think there'll be at least 3 or something, which seems like a little code. He's like, that aren't with the organization right now, which was like, do you know something? That was a couple weeks ago. But like, so do you think like rotation, middle of the order bat, first base, right-handed center fielder, bullpen? Sandy, do you see any of those things as like, I think they'll do that?
I think there will be one hitter. I don't think it's going to be a tentpole bat, but I think they'll either get a first baseman, a center fielder, or someone else to play in the infield or outfield as like even if it's a Matt Carpenter role, like there'll be someone there. I think there's at least 1 or 2 relievers, and I think there's a decent chance there's one starter, probably not 2 starters, maybe 1 starter. So yeah, I think there will be at least 3 to 4 new guys on the roster. That's just like the reality. And here, Kareem says he thinks they're going to add someone in the Rule 5 draft. I think that's true, especially after the success you saw with Fernandez. I think that's just the reality of running a Major League Baseball club. Year to year, there's turnover.
Yeah.
Like you'd be really hard pressed to find a Cardinals team that doesn't have at least 2 to 3 new guys in a Cardinals uniform.
Yeah.
Because we're not saying they have to matter.
Well, you'd be hard pressed to find any major league team that doesn't
exactly.
add. Like, it just happens. Like when people are like, they're not adding in with a cutting payroll. I'm like, there's like, I'm trying to think of a team that didn't add a single player in an offseason. Like that just doesn't happen.
It's impossible. There will be somebody.
I mean, it took the Cubs like 3 months to sign Imanaga, and that was like all they did.
But they did other random smaller.
No, I don't think I'm not saying I think that was the only move they had to their major league roster up until like January. I don't know. I don't think it's possible though.
I think it's almost certain there's a reliever. I think it's almost certain I don't know.
Well, they technically brought back Cody Bellinger. They did Hector Neris. They acquired Michael Bush, Craig Counsell. So like, I mean, that's like a offseason where they did very little, but they did something. So
yeah, they brought in at least 3 new guys in Bush, Imanaga, and Neris.
Yeah. So we're not telling you it's gonna be huge, but like they're gonna do something.
Well,
Andrew, what do you think?
You just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they have to, but Bill Downton, who do you see us losing in the Rule 5 draft? Are they going to not protect Ian Bedell, and Sandy's going to be really sad?
Oh, I'd be devastated.
Well, they have to protect Tink and Tekoa Roby this time, and I think someone else who's really interesting. So,
yeah.
I mean, Ian Bedell has like you keep glazing Ian Bedell, and I look at his stats, and it's like he's not that like impressive. Like
he was impressive last year.
You make him sound like a top like 100 prospect. And it's like,
well, I pick my guys, and when I'm right, I'm right. John King, baby.
John King. Andrew, any of the specific areas you're like, I think they'll do that?
I think they have to add relievers. They'll probably add some bat that we don't like. They're going to be like, you know what? Kevin Kiermaier is going to be our tentpole bat. He's actually retiring. I don't know why I said that. Or something like that.
And Charlie Blackmon.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. And we're going to be really disappointed, and that's fine. But tentpole bat seems like very vague language. And I can totally see Mo selling like Tommy Pham, a reunion again as the tentpole bat. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. See, I'm just not gonna be disappointed if they don't make big moves this offseason. I'm not expecting it, but I'm not ruling it out either. And big moves is in like Brent Rooker is like the biggest thing, and that still feels unlikely. But like to me, Walker Buehler or something like that would be a big move. Like I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And it's not like a game changer, but it's like, oh, this raises your ceiling 2025 potentially, but also long term. I think they'll I think you're right. They'll add a bat. I just don't know what kind of bat, and I think they'll potentially add an arm. Um, yeah, it's just so hard to know right now, right? So hopefully, in the next few weeks, you have some clarity there. But anything you guys want to address on the way out, or?
Yeah, I was ripping some of the Topps update cards earlier, and I got a dual card of Kyle Leahy and Chris Roycroft. And Sandy, when I see you next, I'll give that to you. It was right behind a Giovanni Gallegos card, and I was like,
"That's wild."
Sandy's works for Topps. He's doing it.
Wow! Look at Kyle Sandy Leahy go. Oh man! Well, thanks for everyone tuning in tonight. It's been a good time. We'll be live again, maybe Saturday this week, potentially Sunday. We've also got our Q&A episodes on Fridays and such as well. Thanks to 314 Sports Cards as usual, and thanks to Smith Agri Service. Again, you can go back to earlier in the podcast as well if you want to see that. You can scan the QR code to get the phone number for Smith Agri Service, and again, check out 314 Sports Cards on Instagram. And then also go check them out in person. We appreciate all of your support as always, and we're excited to have more clarity in some of these conversations going forward. But until next time, this has been Dealing the Cards. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Kareem.